The Thief is a traditional RPG class specializing in moving unseen and unheard, acquiring valuable items without conflict, and dealing high damage from the shadows when necessary. The Thief is far more comfortable with a lockpick than a sword, and when they do need to engage in battle, they prefer ambush and trickery over direct combat. Highly skilled in the crafty use of speech, they are able to convince any merchant that the items they're selling to them were acquired through perfectly legitimate means. The Thief came to Skyrim with her uncle, who runs a caravan all the way up from elsewhere every summer. The Nord's refusal to allow Khajiit into their cities both irritated and fascinated her. What could they be hiding in there, she wondered. One night she quietly slipped out of the caravan camp and made her way into Whiterun. Security was lax, shameful even, and she had no trouble exploring both the lower and upper districts. She stopped short of invading the Jarl's palace mostly for lack of time rather than out of respect. When returning to the camp, she was caught by her uncle and warned that he cannot afford to have her breaking the Nord's laws. That didn't stop her from doing exactly the same thing when they arrived at Markarth, but this time when she returned to the caravan, they'd already left. A note tied to a stone near where she'd slept the night before explained it all. She was on her own. I wore hedge mage armor with jewelry to enhance lockpicking and pickpocketing skill, and carried a crossbow for maximum ranged damage. Okay, let's take a look at the perks that I've chosen for the Thief build. Starting with archery, we got Mastery 2 of 2, of course. Wingstrike, which is really nice when an opponent gets in too close. You can bash them with your bow or crossbow, and it will stagger them, first of all, but then also increase the damage that you do for the next 10 seconds by 40%. So, in general, you would have probably already shot them, and as they're getting in closer, you're doing more and more damage, so most enemies, at least single target enemies, go down pretty quickly. I also picked up Crippling Shot, basically for the same reason, to slow down especially melee opponents as they're getting in close. So Crippling Shot reduces their speed by 10% for 20 seconds, and the effect stacks. I also got Clean Kill because the bow is the only weapon that the Thief uses, so assuming they're at full health, you'll do an additional 20 points of damage when you hit them with your crossbow or bow, and Ranger, so that I can continue to move at full speed with my crossbow drawn, and finally Quick Shot, so that I can reload faster, which is a big deal with a crossbow, especially since they're so slow at reloading. For light armor, I didn't take any perks at all. I did level it up, but I used those levels just to put perks into other things. For example, Sneak. So, Mastery 2 of 2, of course. Silent Roll, so that we can roll around a little bit more easily. Movement speed increased while we're in Sneak. Infiltrator, which allows your armor to and footsteps to make less noise. Right behind you, so you can sneak in targets' blind spots, and you're more effective the closer you are to the person that you're sneaking. Clean Escape, allowing for basically a getaway. Smoke Curtain, so that if things get really bad, you've got a once-a-day power to create a cloud of smoke within 35 feet for 120 seconds. It blinds anyone that's in the cloud, preventing them from both seeing you as long as you're sneaking, and also allows you to do more damage. I also picked up Tripwire, allowing me to place a tripwire in front of me for 120 seconds, and it snaps, knocking targets to the floor. That is really great getaway perk. Whiplash causes tripwire to also reduce armor rating by 750 points. So once they're down on the ground, you're doing massive amounts of damage. And backup plan is something that I thought would be really cool, but I didn't really get to make use of it that much. After you've been out of combat for at least 5 seconds, entering combat will place a tripwire behind you for 60 seconds. This does not count against the limit of 1 tripwire at a time, which is cool. So you can have 2 tripwires, but I found that I generally backed up and then tripped my own tripwire, so it didn't come in as useful as I thought it would. I probably would have spent that perk somewhere else if I had it to do over. For lockpicking, I took, of course, Mastery 2 out of 2. Wax Key for the ability to not have to re-pick locks that get relocked. And Locksmith so that the pick starts closer to the opening position. We also went to Robber's Eye. Now, this is something that only triggers every 12 to 60 in-game hours, but it illuminates a locked container for 120 seconds when you enter a dwelling that you do not own. During that time, the contents of that container will be more valuable based on your lockpicking skill and the difficulty of the lock. Gone in 15 seconds, taking 15 seconds or less to pick the lock of the container that's illuminated by Robber's Eye improves the added treasure by an average of 50% based on the level of the lock, and it also resets the cooldown. Nose for Treasure allows you to choose an item type, and in my case I chose Jewelry. Containers illuminated by Robber's Eye are 3 times more likely to contain items of your chosen type. And Dungeoneer, Robber's Eye also works in dungeons and lasts 3 times as long. Pickpocket, I went super heavy as well. Mastery 2 out of 2. I took Death's Emperor 1 out of 2, allowing you to deal an extra 100 attack damage to anybody that you pickpocket or reverse pickpocket the coin onto. I got Cutpurse, adds 25% to your chance of pickpocketing gold, keys, and jewelry. Brotherhood Cocktail. I only got that so that I could get to Trickster. You can pickpocket equipped weapons, and if the target's sleeping, you can pickpocket any equipped item. Lawless World. Petty crimes are slowly forgotten, allowing your bounties for non-violent crimes to decay at a rate of 50% of your pickpocket skill per day. So that's great. If you can get away before the guard gets to you, they'll slowly forget about it and you won't have to pay your bounty. Stalk the Prey. Preparing to pickpocket. So that is having the pickpocket message displayed while you're sneaking behind a victim for at least 12 seconds adds 20% to your chance of pickpocketing any item. That's nice since, of course, pickpocketing caps off at 90%. Dragon Horde. Whenever you sleep with 50,000 or more gold in your inventory, you can choose to spend it to purchase a perk point. Now, during my playthrough, I never had 50,000 gold, but that does give you the option, especially as a thief where you're going to be making a lot of money, gives you the option of just continuing to buy more perks as you go through your playthrough. I also picked up Thief's Eye, so this is the same thing as the Robber's Eye from the lockpicking tree. When you enter a major city, it illuminates a random citizen on the streets for 300 seconds. If you interact with the target during this time, they will carry valuable items, which are based on your pickpocketing skill. This can also occur only every 12 to 60 in-game hours. Thief's Luck, you can choose a type, and once again I went with Jewelry. Those illuminated by Thief's Eye are 3 times more likely to carry items of your chosen type. Crime Wave, shortly after you pickpocket or speak with the target illuminated by Thief's Eye, a new victim is illuminated up to 5 times in a row, so you can just go from one to another. It's hard. I found it very difficult to actually do this, but it's quite interesting. You could get a lot of money if you manage to follow one target after another. Finally, we have speech. So other than mastery 2 of 2, I also took bribery, of course, so that when I do get caught by a guard, I can bribe them into forgetting all about my crimes. Took kinship, which doesn't really help that much since I was playing as a Khajiit, so it only reduces the cost of buying items from caravans in general. Salesman, so that I can sell any type of item to any merchant. Investor, which I didn't use, but you can use it to increase the amount of gold that a shopkeeper has. And of course, fence, because naturally, a really skilled thief would not need to sell items only to a designated fence, but would be able to convince any merchant that the things that they're selling to them are perfectly legal. Quick thank you once again to Mad King CF for his donation during the stream that helped make this build possible.